Hi, welcome to Last Week in the Local for the night before Christmas. You know, I was looking at the sunrise sunset tables the other day, thinking, oh, December 21st was the longest night of the year, the shortest day. And then I went to look, and December 22nd was exactly the same length. And December 23rd, which is today, is only 5 seconds longer. So fuck this shit is what I got to say. Like, and I figured out, though, I was thinking through this, how could the 2 days be exactly the same? And it's because the actual time of the solstice was right around midnight. And I went and looked it up, and sure enough, it was right around midnight. So because it occurred, at least our midnight, it basically split the 2 days equally. So we had two shortest days this year. That's plenty from where I sit.
You could tell Mike lives a lot more north longitudinally than Mary and I do, because we don't even pay attention to that stuff. I don't know. You, Mary?
I mean, I'm only at 42, 43 degrees, but it's a pretty dark winter. I wake every morning, I get on my exercise machine, I turn on my sad light, which doesn't make me too much less sad, but it does give me a little bit more energy. So, you know, who knows, whatever. So anyways, first thing, Local U Advance, we have a new event coming up in Atlanta, March 25th in Atlanta. First time in Atlanta. We're doing it in cooperation with Call Rail, which is fun, nice, great, nice sponsor. Rio SEO is also a sponsor. And this one's a little different. It's not a sort of universal Local Advanced. It's a Local Advanced called Google Masterclass, where we're focusing specifically on tactics, strategies, and ideas around improving Google-specific things. So we have a bunch of ideas. We're working on the agenda now. The pre-agenda pricing is available until January 6th. It's at $5.99. So if you want to either have a little bit of money left over in your own budget or want to get the best price on this, now's the time to sign up. So localu.org, you'll see it there for $5.99. In the world of local, I thought two great articles from Professor Scott Galloway. He's a marketing professor at NYU. One's called Fucked X, basically interesting analysis of the impact. We've talked a lot about Amazon's logistics effort, moving into the last mile, as well as everything in between the last mile and China, boats, airplanes, warehouses, all of that. And he notes that since 2014, e-commerce has increased 84%, creating a massive opportunity, but that there's been, because of Amazon's successful strategy, moving into a high friction, low margin business, and that FedEx particularly has lost a lot of value. They've lost $25 billion in value since Amazon's entered. And Amazon is sort of, he does what he calls featureizing. So he's taking something that people perceive Amazon's taking something they perceive a lot of value in, and they're basically bundling it in for free in a high efficiency, low friction way into their other businesses, essentially deprecating the value of that service to zero, but adding value to their subscription plan in this case. So he had two articles. One was at his blog, the other was at Business Insider. And at Business Insider, he noted that while he thought Walmart might be an effective acquirer of FedEx, creating a powerful sort of delivery sales sort of combo, that he thought it would be even better if Shopify were to buy them, that it could actually create a viable alternative to the Amazon sort of train that's moving through. Anyways.
I find that interesting. One of the things that I was just thinking about, we didn't talk about this in the pre-talk, but I'm having major issues with USPS right now. They're not delivering things. Things are coming through my informed delivery that I'm not getting. Packages they're not bringing to me, saying that I refused them, but I did not. Stuff like that. And so if I could order from Amazon and say, ship this UPS or ship this FedEx, I would pay extra for that all day long, because I've got stuff coming that's supposed to come post office. I don't know if I'm going to get it at this point in time. because we don't have Amazon delivery in the boonies. So, I mean, it all comes via a carrier. So, let me pick FedEx. Let me pick UPS.
Interesting. Along that vein, though, Amazon actually banned their merchants from shipping via FedEx in these last days before Christmas because of FedEx's poor record of on-time delivery.
I know, and you mentioned that FedEx has lost stock market value, but you would think that there would be a corresponding gain at Amazon, and there's really not. So that I find that a little interesting.
Well, Amazon's incredibly profitable, though, and expanding into ever more businesses, competing ever more. Interesting on the competition front, we've talked a lot about Walmart and their efforts in the purchase of Jet and Bonobos and various other sort of high-tech, higher demographic focused plays. And then over the last couple months, they're basically stepping back from that. All those executives have left. They've rolled Jet into Walmart.com, et cetera. There was at /gear article titled "The Leaked Walmart Plan to Take on Amazon Includes 5G and Edge Computing." Apparently, they had an annual or a meeting of some sort, and the CEO laid out his plans for competing. And rather than trying to compete in the Amazon domain of e-commerce, Walmart's going to try to leverage their massive existing store base to provide customers with more rapid deliveries, access to goods, sort of online in-store kind of combo things, as well as experiences. I don't know what a Walmart experience is. But they can't order online.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, really. Right? This is the company that pumps their beef full of 12% saline solution. So I don't know what you'd go there for a Botox and get saline inserted. I don't know.
Experiences, the people a Walmart tour? Like, what is that?
Right. But an example would be, I think, their successful experiment in online ordering of groceries that you can pick up. I know you use this, Carrie, and it sounds to me like you like it a lot. I think that's the kind of thing that they need to focus on, which is this online-offline experience that takes pain out of something currently you can't really do online, which is grocery shopping.
Well, and not only that, so like all the stores that you shop online, you do it via an account that you log into. They track everything that you buy and what you pay for it and give me special deals on the things I buy. So no longer do I get coupons or special deals or offers for things that I don't buy anymore. So, right. I mean, there's that whole it's kind of a circle, right? You buy it, they know you buy it, they give you a deal on it, you buy more of it from them because they gave you a deal, kind of thing. Right. I find it incredibly helpful, and I don't have to go walk around Walmart to get the few things that I need from there, which is...
Yeah. A couple of other interesting comments from this article that the company reportedly wants to turn their stores into edge computing centers. So taking the excess power that exists out in the remote locations, which are everywhere. I mean, even towns as small as 5,000 or 10,000 have Walmarts, taking that and turning it into parts of a larger edge computing sort of network service. So I thought that was an interesting idea. They're talking about transforming warehouses into processing and shipping centers for third-party products, et cetera. So leveraging their existing physical infrastructure for an offline-online play that includes infrastructure at the digital level as well as the physical level. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, clearly they're very good at what they do, which is getting stuff from point A out to the consumers. They do it very efficiently, very cost-effectively. In the end, this commodity product battle seems to me will come down to largely two players. There'll be niches and fill-in players, but much like in the world of telecommunications and cell phones, we're down to AT&T and Verizon in the United States, and then Sprint and T-Mobile are merging, but lacking an effective FTC or DOJ enforcement, we're going to see least coarse commodity retail consolidating down to two players. Speaking of that personalization, though, there was a very interesting multi-part series. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, I left my phone on. I apologize. Very interesting multi-part opinion pieces analyzing the data set of 50 million location pings from 2016 and 2017. So a lot of the software that's on your phone, a lot of the weather software and the gaming software and the various apps that you may or may not have carefully set permissions for are sending location data all the time back to the mothership. So even if we found that in the case where location data was turned off with Google, there was some setting someplace else where they were sending it back. Anyways, it's happening even much more amongst these third-party apps, and they're able to assign these pings and understand which phones they're to. And so the New York Times was able to get access to a very, very large data set with 50 billion location pings of more than 12 million Americans as they move through several major cities, including Washington, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. The obvious lack of privacy, but they wrote a second article that was about the national security implications. Within a few hours, they were able to match up public information about Trump's whereabouts with actual Secret Service employee who was in that entourage, and they were able to identify that Secret Service employee to figure out where he lived as well. So they were able to de-anonymize this information with very little work based on public resources. So it not only is a privacy issue, it's a national security issue. Obviously, if you have your top leaders walking around with sending pings to the cell towers, makes them a fairly easy target for bad actors. Interesting series of articles with some great graphics worth looking at where they show like what the Pentagon looks like, what numbers, what is the ping, where are the pings coming from the Pentagon and the White House, that sort of stuff. Fascinating.
Well, and if you can pinpoint it down to where the office within the Pentagon, like, who's off. I mean, those offices are all labeled. You know whose office is where. You could look at the directory and see it. That's crazy. Business, office buildings, all kinds of stuff. So
this is part of the dystopia that we have sort of entered into with our cell phones, and it's hard to know when and how all of this information is moving back to these databases, and these companies are not regulated. So it's another failure on the part of FTC, DOJ, government in this country. And then on to more tactical things. I know it's about local search as much as anything, but I just see local search existing in this much bigger context. Anyways, Tom Waddington did a great summary article at the whitespark.ca blog. Here's what you need to know about Google Local Services, where he talks about which verticals it's in, which cities it's currently available in, why you should use it in addition to AdWords, when should you not use it, all the questions that come up with it, how does it relate to Google My Business, what the future might hold. Very good article if you're in home services, or even now we're seeing it coming up in insurance, legal, and a few other non-home service businesses. So you might want to take a look at it. And then finally, you and I, Carrie, did that deep dive at Local U, sort of looking at what was originally reported as a review carousel, but appears to be so much more. We called it a query carousel. Miriam tagged it as a content carousel. Maybe you can let us know which of those you prefer. But when you are doing a long tail product or service query in local, and you look at the business profiles, we are seeing posts being brought in, we're seeing products being brought in, we're seeing Q&A being brought in addition to reviews being brought in. One of the interesting things on the reviews is if you don't have a fairly large number of reviews, somewhere in the order of 100, your reviews aren't brought in, but the other things still are, the posts, the Q&A, the products, although oftentimes the products came from product posts, not from the new product beta that's out there. So we're seeing the product beta temporarily, at least, excluded from this mix. But we also only saw these answers on longer tail kind of product queries, not on head queries.
It had to to be like product specific. It wasn't like a category query, like jewelry didn't create it, but
Right.
engagement ring did, or wedding ring did, or water heater did, or drawer pull, like if you're
Right.
looking for a knob for your cabinets or whatever. Those created that carousel, and I think that the other thing to be, if you haven't seen it yet or you haven't watched the deep dive yet, this content is above the name, address, or the address and phone number in the business listing, and that's big, like the location. So a lot of people quit doing posts because they pushed it down to the bottom, and they're like, nobody sees them, nobody clicks on these things anyway. Well, now that content is surfacing up in that carousel. That makes a big difference.
And it doesn't need to be a current post. It could be an older post.
Yep.
So it means that your post strategy needs to be product driven or service driven. You need to be sure that you have posts with relevant images about these longer tail products, jewelry appraisal, engagement rings, wedding rings, earrings, those types of things. And you want to be sure. I noticed that Barbara Oliver gets into the weeds about how many carats and stuff. Some of that's okay, but you really want to be sure that you are mentioning this longer tail product service in the post.
Content. Yep.
And you want 6 or 8 Q&A that are broadly about these things, because the problem with Q&A is you probably can't do a lot of them from a user interface point of view, but so you can't like catch the variations on the queries, but it needs to match the query pretty closely. Whereas in post, you could do custom jewelry design as well as jewelry design or custom engagement ring design. You could do all of those over time, capturing some of that
the
product
correlation
detail
between the content in the Q&A or the content in the post and the query is high, I think, to get it to show up in that carousel. And
Right.
so you need to make sure that you're using those keywords in the content. You're not just going to get it to get it. You've got to have really relevant content in your business profile to get the carousel and have it surface that way.
Right. So with that, over to you, Mir.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing that caught my eye this week is that over at the local search forum, Tom Waddington posted about how he was seeing a new format on mobile browsers for service areas, and it shows a truck icon, and when you click on it, it lists the areas the business has put in their service areas on Google My Business. And as Mike pointed out earlier, this works for not just service area businesses, but brick and mortar businesses who have designated service areas.
Does it change? It shows a top level one at the business profile level before you click in. Does that change based on the query or the location of the search? Do you know?
Tom Waddington thinks it might, and suggests that we all do a little bit more observation on that. Let him know.
Okay. There you have your job for the week.
All right.
Because I didn't have 10 more to do.
It's a slow week, Carrie.
It's a real
for
slow
you.
Then Ruth Burr-Reedy did a Whiteboard Friday.
Did Carrie just give us a raspberry, Mary?
I think so.
I
I think
did.
it was for you, not
Oh,
me.
it wasn't both of us.
Hey,
Just
she
me.
likes
What
you.
did I do? What did I
Because you're
do?
the one who said it's a slow week. Whose week is slow? I got work to do, man. And I got to make dinner.
All right. Okay. Peace.
I got to wrap presents. I got to bake cookies. Busy.
You buy the presents wrapped, Carrie. Little secret from an old lazy whatever.
Right. If you buy them from Amazon, they'll gift wrap them for you.
Right?
Yeah.
Send them with a card.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure the post office is going to get them here on time. So that adds another layer. So we'll see.
So this week, the Whiteboard Friday was Ruth Burr-Reedy doing actually accurate analytics. And this is a great guide for Google Analytics. If you're kind of non-techie, don't know your way around analytics that much, this is the guide you need, because even I can understand her directions for setting things up and why you set them up that way. And it's all very detailed, so I highly recommend it. And then Maz's Miriam Ellis did a nice article a few weeks ago about simple spam fighting, the easiest local rankings you'll ever earn. And she gives you a couple of examples. One that really amazed me was she was able to move Home Depot up in the local finder rankings by getting rid of 6 or 8 spammers who were ahead of them. This is the easiest ROI you'll ever earn. You can move your clients or your own business up in the rankings several spaces just by spending a few hours researching and reporting spam in your local finder and local pack. And
I agree 100%. I would just add in the caveat that I have to spam fighting is to make sure that you do it incognito. Don't expose yourself to these networks because as Mike has indicated, there are big networks of spammers out there and they will stop at nothing, pretty much nothing, even death threats, to retaliate against people who report them. So use VPNs and incognito browsers and make sure that, when you take a screenshot of a Street View location, it's not automatically posting to your local guide profile and all of those scary things that can happen.
Yeah.
Your photo albums and things like that. So, I think it's absolutely worthwhile. I'm not saying don't spam fight. I'm just saying make sure you use the private forum at Google and don't expose yourself to those bad actors.
And something that Joy Hawkins does at Sterling Sky is she has a spam fighter, somebody whose job it is to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's, if you have an agency, that's probably a really good move to take. That way they can keep up on, they can make sure they're being anonymous and keep up with different types of spam that are coming up and what to do about them. And over to you, Carrie.
Awesome. I had an article, speaking of spam, from Search Engine Land that Jamie Pittman of Bright Local wrote, talking about how Google's local guides program fails businesses and consumers. Good guides gone bad is what it was titled. And this is about how the gamification of spam via local guides. And Mike pointed out in the pre-talk, we don't know what percentage of the local guide program is spammers, right, who do things with bad intentions. I am not a big fan of the local guides program. I think the user interface encourages people to leave poor answers for Q&As and things like that. To get points, and some people just want points and they don't really realize they aren't going to get crap for all these points other than maybe some prestige. You could get to a level 10, I guess, or something like that. And does that get you anything extra?
Level 15
is
the highest level now.
What do you get for that? I don't know. I don't understand why people want it so bad.
Well, for me, I mean, I have contributed to maps for a long time, and a lot of it came out of, for me, a desire to have Olean reflected accurately in the maps, right? This little hometown that, nobody knew anything about maps, and I would go take pictures, make sure the driving directions were accurate, and I'd fix it just out of this perhaps false sense of ownership, but out of a desire to make my own community better. I think there are some people who do that. I think there are people who manipulate for points the way you've suggested. There are spammers that manipulate for sure and become local guides because they do. And I think there are people who just unknowingly answer the question that Google asks, well, I don't know. And they don't realize that it's showing on the business profiles in the form of a Q&A. That being said, in looking at low spam industries like the insurance industry, like jewelry, I can tell you that their review content has taken off sort of in correlation with the rollout of this local guide program. And a lot of that content is very, very good. So, we in this industry sort of we see the belly of the beast a lot. What we don't see and what Google doesn't publish is what happens on top of the ugly stuff that we do see. Like any big data, could be 5% of the data is bad or 10%. Google has the arrogance to think that they can somehow clean this up. They probably clean up 85% of the bad data. You still end up with a lot of bad data. So some of it's Google's arrogance about how this all works and what is needed in a true local product.
Do you think that a lot of like you're talking about the insurance or the jewelry industries and how you're seeing the influence of local guides there, do you think that influence is about the local guide program, or is it because these businesses are just better about asking and for reviews and people happen to be local guides? Do you think is there a correlation and causation there, or are they two separate things?
Well, it's hard to know why Google reviews have grown so much in the last 3 years compared to, say, Yelp reviews or Facebook reviews or anybody else. But when I went back and looked at 3 years ago on the reviews per month, oftentimes Yelp was generating the most reviews per month across all these industries. They're still generating the same number of views per month as they were. They were generating more at the beginning than Google. And somewhere around the beginning of 2016, April 2016, we started seeing the numbers of the Google reviews climb, and they continue to climb in a hockey stick fashion, so that now in many industries we're seeing 10x, 20x Google reviews over anybody else. Now,
right.
The correlation, there are a number of correlations along with this. One is the public becoming more aware of reviews. 2, businesses asking for reviews. 3, like we talked about you'll talk about Google Plus going away, making it easier for people to leave reviews. And 4, the growth of the local guide program where it gamifies. So which of those is the primary contributor? I don't know, because I can't, Google might know, but we can't parse that out. All we do know is that there's a lot of good content being produced on Google as well as some bad content, and we don't really know how much the bad content is.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Awesome. I also, Tom Waddington shared a screenshot on Twitter showing a request a quote button showing up in the local pack, like the 3-pack for mobile searches. I don't get it. Mike does get it. It might be rolling
It's
out.
a big, bold call.
Yeah.
It's a big, bold call to action right at the top of the 3-pack. Mm-hmm. I see it on my iPhone in Safari. I know Tom has an iPhone too, so I don't know if it's rolled out to everybody or if it's still a test. It basically accesses, it's visible in the service area businesses mostly at this point. Mm-hmm. Locksmiths, garage door openers, those guys.
Yeah, and it ties in with the messaging in your GMB, and so people fill out that request a quote, and Google sends it to anybody who's available in that category that ranks there, is my understanding. Well, that has messaging turned on. You have to have messaging turned on to get them.
Or have LSA turned on, right? It will the quote structure is the LSA structure, where, for example, in plumbing they say which categories of things, and Google is sort of turning, as Tom noted in that previous article, turning that structure into the sort of service things that are in the GMB. So they're sort of consolidating that, but that quote structure is very similar to LSA, and the LSA companies show highest on the list. So
sure.
In Locksmith, so it's not clear whether it's trying to increase the conversions for LSA or whether it's trying to divert pack traffic or all the above. We don't know yet.
Or they could be testing how it works and add more ads to the Google Guaranteed, the LSA. Who knows what they're going to do with that, for sure. Mike and David released their last Street Fight article for the decade. I guess that's how you guys worded it. With a review of local search then and now, 10 years of local search. I thought it was a really interesting article, kind of look at the things that have come and gone. Google Plus, as you mentioned, being something that came and went in the last decade. Most things that have happened in local have happened in the last 5 years, maybe not 10 years. And
Although some of them we saw, like transactions,
yeah,
we started seeing them in 2010. In fact, I wrote and referenced one in the article where, we've crossed the transaction Rubicon, where
right.
Bing was one of the first people to start transactions around local listings. So some things have been taking 10 years to sort of ramp up.
Right. And one of the things from the article that David said that really kind of struck me was 10 years ago, fewer than 50% of local businesses had a website. And the ones that did provided an awful experience, particularly on phones. So you think of, businesses are now, more businesses have websites. They have better websites. Hopefully they're getting better websites. And we also have better technology with which to view this stuff online. 10 years ago, the mobile phone that you looked at a website on was
Yeah.
not great.
We can't forget that Google had the vision that is now coming to be with Google My Business back in 2009 or 2010. I mean, they had big plans. They announced all kinds of things that they've tried a few of them that have gone away. They've tried a few of them that have become features in Google My Business.
They've tried a few that went away and came back.
Yeah.
They never throw an idea away. They keep trying it if they think the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
this has been marinating for at least 10 years. The idea that Google My Business should be this business center where a small business can conduct all of their online stuff.
For sure. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see where we've been and gone and come back from in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I have actually isn't local search, but it's a really interesting article on pop-ups for your website from SEMrush. And they talk about the good pop-ups and the bad pop-ups and some different features that you can use as pop-ups that I didn't really think about, like exit pop-ups versus entrance pop-ups, or the pop-ups that give people spin the wheel and get a percentage off if you stay kind of stuff, which I find annoying, but apparently it's quite popular with some people. It works quite well. Who knows? I am anti pop-ups that come over the top of whatever I'm reading. I want it unobtrusive. I'm much more likely to interact with it if it slides up from the bottom or offers me a deal. The other thing they said was if you offer something as part of your pop-up, it should be relevant to what people are looking at or searching for on your website. So if they're searching for shoes and they go to leave and you give them a outerwear coupon, they're not going to pay any attention to that. They want shoe discounts, not outerwear discounts. So it's a very interesting article on pop-ups. Mike pointed out in the pre-talk that we have one on the Local U website, but we've kept it pretty unobtrusive. Takes a while for it to show up. It's got a 30-day cookie on it. It slides up from the bottom. It doesn't get in the way, and we've done pretty good. What did you say the growth on that was, Mike? About 25 a month?
Well, no, it's more like 20 a week. It's like 75 new emails, subscribers a month. It's been very successful.
Yeah. So getting it right is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think you need to err on the side of conservative because they are incredibly annoying. And speaking of annoying, I would go back to the article from David and I. There's still too many local sites that don't surface phone number, email address, driving directions, hours right up front, on the website.
I just audited one the other day that their contact info wasn't even on their homepage. It was buried on a contact us page. Like they didn't even surface their phone number on every page.
Be at the top of every page, right?
Absolutely.
Because you don't know where somebody's going to come in. So, anyways, sorry for the regression there, but
that's okay. So anyway, I thought it was a really good article on pop-ups. One thing I would encourage people to do is not have your pop-up go on a mobile device. We have blocked ours. You should not get a pop-up on the Local U website on a mobile device. That is even more annoying. Other things, I hate them because sometimes they just don't scale right, and you can't get rid of it, or you can't find the X to get rid of it, or whatever. I just think it's a bad idea. So that being said, my rant about pop-ups is over, and I'm done.
All right. Well, just a reminder to people that the You're going to have to give me the date again for the locally
March
advanced
25th.
March 25th in Atlanta. So we're new area.
In downtown Atlanta at the Louder Milk Conference Center.
Yep.
Sponsored by CallRail and Rio SEO, amongst others. Pre-agenda pricing ends January 6th, so it's sort of a little year-end gift. Not a big gift, but
last
a little
minute
year-end
gift for your employees.
Last minute gift. There you go. Anyway, so if you're thinking of coming, it's a good time to buy. And we will be here next week, even though we don't expect anybody to listen to this. The show must go on, so we'll be here Monday as well next week. And then 2020, God only knows what it holds, but it should be exciting.
That's for sure.
All right. Well, have a Merry Christmas, folks.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays and
Happy New Year.
Thanks for listening all year.
See you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.